Hey class, and welcome to Advertising and Consumer Culture mini lecture, which is actually a part of the lecture on advertising. And this one is actually taken from the book Questioning the Media, and this is from chapter 19. All right, let's start from the beginning. So, according to the author, there's an issue with advertising, and it began with the expansion of marketing and advertising, which was originally the result of mass production. So, new modes of advertising, marketing, packaging, and design help produce the mass consumption necessary for the purchase of all these new commodities. So the author looked back to the beginning of the 20th century and said that by 1920s, corporations, advertising agencies, and market research organizations began planning ways to produce consumers and to promote consumptions as a way of life in the United States. Because you see, prior to the start of the mass production, people tend to produce their own goods at home. They would sew their own clothes, they would make their own cheese and all that. So anything that can be produced at home, they would produce it. So with this production of mass production, then there needs to be market that can purchase all of those goods that were produced. And that's why, according to the author, it's necessary for these industries to create mass consumption to be able to absorb all the goods that were produced. So individuals had to be convinced that it was acceptable to purchase goods they had previously produced themselves and that it was morally justifiable to consume, to spend money, and to gratify desires. So what we see here is a shift in the way people think about purchasing goods. Previously, they thought that if you can produce it yourself, why would you want to buy the goods? But according to the author, the mass industries needed to create these cravings, this thinking that it's okay to consume, so that, like what I say, the goods that they produce can be absorbed by this market. So the purpose of advertising is actually to create that desire, to create that consumers. And advertising also attempted to create problems and fears to which commodities were a solution. So if you think about, fashion, for instance, there is this need that we need to keep up with the trendy fashion or fashion at the moment. And that's part of the strategy, according to the author, of advertising, creating this craving, this needs, this desire that only a product can actually solve the problem. So, in this way, a commodity self emerged in which different products allowed individuals to communicate different aspects of their personalities that could be shaped by using the right products and producing the right images. So, for instance, we think about how we can, if we want to, make our own coffee at home. But we don't do that very often. We tend to go out and purchase coffee from, say, the specific coffee shops or go to Starbucks to get our coffee. So we understand that it is part of our branding that if we want to drink coffee, then what we do is we would go to this coffee shop or go to the Starbucks and drink our coffee. And it's the same thing with fashion as well. If we want to be perceived certain way, we would identify with certain types or certain brands of fashion. So this is what the author meant by creating this idea of a commodity self. So advertising tells us that new commodities will make us happier, more popular, and successful. So, what is the purpose of this chapter? The author, using cultural studies and political economy theories, examines some advertisements and showcase how these advertisements produce consumers and integrate individuals within the consumer society. So how do these ads produce consumers? In order to sell their products, corporations undertake campaigns to associate them with positive and desirable images. If you open magazines and then you, especially fashion magazines like Vogue or Harper's Bazaar or Elle, then you would see all of these branded items that create this idea of, oh, being cool, being of certain class, that create these cravings, and people need to identify with that brand. So all ads, according to the author, are social texts that respond to key developments during the period in which they appear. So what looks cool in the 2020 is going to look different to the idea of what is cool in the 1990s, in early 2000, or even as as way back as the 1930s, 1940s. The author uses Marlboro as his example, showing how the ad changes throughout the years from the 1950s to the present day. And we also understand that advertising sells its products and view of the world through visual and verbal rhetorics, design, and layout, to which tremendous psychological research, artistic resources, and marketing strategies are devoted. So, in order to create these ideas of what is good, what is happy, what is desirable, there's a lot going on behind that. And I'm sure people who are taking advertising as their major or minor would understand this. So, fashion and the manufacture of image. Here, the author focusing on the fashion industry. So, he says that advertising and the fashion industry thus combine individuality and conformity in curious ways. Individuals consume and pursue fashion to individuate themselves, yet they do so in order to be socially accepted, to fit in, and be popular. Moreover, mass-produced good and fashion are used to produce a fake individuality, a commodity self, and this kind of image. Now, you may disagree with this statement, but I do want you to think about it. Do you agree or do you disagree, and why? So, in the end, the author believes that one, manipulation by the advertising and fashion industries can actually be avoided. Two, we can resist the temptation by choosing to purchase clothes based on usefulness, durability, value, and actual need. And that advertising is a disgraceful waste of resources, talent, and time. Oh, I know this statement is going to make probably some of you raise your eyebrows and disagree with this one. But this chapter is very critical, and I do want you to read it, because what I have just given to you is a summary of what the whole chapter is about. So, in order to get ready for your final exam, I do encourage you to actually read the chapter and then come to your own conclusion. All right. Thank you, everyone.